Welcome to Progressive History, the show where we fact-check progressive views of history. Today we'll be looking into the claim that women were burned as witches for brewing beer.
So all of these lady brewers, otherwise known as brewsters, found themselves with kind of a lucrative hobby that just fell in their lap. Now you might find a brewster at home with her cats, with a bubbling cauldron and something that looks suspiciously like a broom above her door, leaving the house with some beer and a very tall tit fur on her head. If this image is starting to sound a little familiar, it should. Now, as for what's been speculated, this whole brewing beer war that happened between men and women also correlated with the extreme witch hunts happening in England at the time. So, some people have said perhaps monks were the ones who said, let's make them scapegoats. They're eating into our profits. The authorities have created a situation where, we're supposed to be above board on all of this. We have guilds and we need to get rid of them. So we were given this skill by God. They obviously weren't. We'll call them witches. It's just so sad to me knowing that these women were so involved in the production and creation of beer, and nobody really knows about them, and they wound up being demonized for it, for just being really good at it and wanting to have a business of their own. But we can take a little solace in knowing that to this day, children and adults still every year dress up as the Brewster witches that they tried to crush.
This claim that alewives were oppressed by men in the church is one of those claims you'll find all over the internet. But all other sources just point to other articles and books that speculated about it. In fact, even one source that's sympathetic with this view said, "It is difficult to tell whether alewives or women who brew beer were accused of witchcraft directly." In other words, there's no evidence that any alewives were ever accused of witchcraft whatsoever. Basically, the only evidence presented is the similarity of the broomstick. And a lot of articles point to pictures of women who brew beer also having broomsticks as a sign for the industry. But lots of people had broomsticks, so it's unclear how the mere fact that alewives use broomsticks is proof that this is the origin of witches flying on broomsticks. So then what is the origin of witches on a broomstick? I did find a source that does explain the origin of this, and it quotes from several different sources. From 1584, at these magical assemblies, the witches never failed to dance, and in their dance they sing these words, "Har har, devil, devil, dance here, pale there, here, pale here, Sabbath, Sabbath." And while they sing and dance, ever one hath a broom in her hand, and holdeth it up aloft. In addition to this quote, a 1324 investigation of a suspect witch, Lady Alice, says, "In rifling the closet of the lady, they found a pipe of ointment, wherewith she greased a staff, upon which she ambled and galloped through thick and thin." And then from 15th century, "But the vulgar believe, and the witches confess, that on certain days or nights they anoint a staff, and ride on it to the appointed place, or anoint themselves under the arms, and in other hairy places." In 1477, the witches Savory confessed that the devil, whose name was Robinette, was a dark man who spoke in a hoarse voice. Kissing Robinette's foot in homage, she renounced God and the Christian faith. He put his mark on her on the little finger of her left hand and gave her a stick 18 inches long and a pot of ointment. She used to smear the ointment on the stick and put it between her legs and say, "Go, in the name of the devil, go." So the reason broomsticks were initially connected to witches is because of historical cases where there was claims of kind of weird ointment and broom stuff going on. It had absolutely nothing to do with alewives. Thanks again for tuning in to this edition of Progressive History. Remember to comment below if you want to have a popular progressive myth about history debunked.